Welcome to our video on the Apollo moon landing. On July 20th, 1969, the world watched in awe as humanity achieved the incredible, setting foot on the moon for the first time. Neil Armstrong's iconic words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," became etched in history, symbolizing an era of boundless potential and exploration. However, despite this monumental achievement, a number of conspiracy theories have emerged over the years, questioning the authenticity of that historic event. Today, we'll explore and debunk some of the most common conspiracy theories surrounding the Apollo 11 moon landing. Our goal is to provide you with scientific evidence and expert testimony that reinforce the factual narrative of this extraordinary mission. So, let's delve into these claims and uncover the truths behind the shadows, photography, and beyond. Stick around as we journey through space and science, demystifying the myths that cloud our momentous leap into the cosmos. One frequent argument brought up by conspiracy theorists is the so-called shadow anomalies in the Apollo 11 photographs. They claim the shadows suggesting multiple light sources point to a studio setup on Earth, rather than a genuine lunar surface. However, this misinformation can be discredited with scientific explanations. The moon's surface is irregular, with numerous craters and uneven grounds, creating shadows at different angles. Additionally, the sun is not the sole light source. Reflective light from the lunar surface and even the Earth contributes to complex shadow formations. These shadows are entirely consistent with a single light source when you consider the topography and reflectivity. In fact, the moon's albedo, or reflectivity, is about 12%, meaning it reflects enough sunlight to cause secondary shadows. Furthermore, perspective distortions from the lunar terrain amplify the appearance of these disparities. When properly understood, these shadow anomalies lose their credibility as evidence of a hoax and instead reinforce the challenging conditions faced by the astronauts and the authenticity of the lunar mission. One of the persistent claims made by moon landing conspiracy theorists is the absence of stars in the photographs taken on the lunar surface. They argue that, given the clarity of space, stars should be abundantly visible in these images. However, there is a straightforward scientific explanation for this phenomenon. The cameras used by the Apollo astronauts were set to short exposure times in order to capture the brightly lit lunar surface and the astronauts themselves. This high exposure setting was essential to avoid overexposure of the bright objects in the foreground. Stars, on the other hand, are much dimmer compared to the moon's surface and thus did not appear in the photographs. This concept can be easily demonstrated with terrestrial photography. When a camera is configured to capture brightly lit objects, faint light sources like stars become invisible. Therefore, the absence of stars in the Apollo images is not evidence of a cover-up, but rather a result of the technical settings needed for proper exposure of the primary subjects in the harsh lighting conditions of the moon. Many conspiracy theorists argue that the American flag, seen flapping in some moon landing photos and videos, suggests that it was exposed to wind, impossible in the moon's vacuum. However, the reality is far more grounded in the laws of physics. The movement observed in the flag is due to the astronauts handling it as they planted it into the lunar soil. This action caused the flag to oscillate, a motion that continued due to the absence of air resistance in the vacuum. Furthermore, the flag was designed with a horizontal rod to keep it extended, giving it a rippled appearance that some mistake for flapping. It's a classic example of how misconceptions can arise from a lack of understanding about the unique conditions of space. Newton's first law of motion explains that in the vacuum of space, objects in motion remain in motion until acted upon by another force. This scientific principle, combined with the flag's specific design, clearly explains and debunks the flapping flag conspiracy theory, reaffirming the authenticity of the moon landing footage. One of the most intriguing claims made by moon landing conspiracy theorists is the idea of identical backgrounds in photos taken miles apart on the lunar surface. At first glance, it might seem as if these pictures were taken against the same backdrop, suggesting a fabricated set. However, this phenomenon is easily explained by understanding the unique conditions on the moon. Without an atmosphere, there is no haze or atmospheric perspective, to provide depth cues as we experience on Earth. This lack of perspective can make distant lunar objects appear closer than they actually are, creating the illusion of identical backgrounds. The moon's surface is also relatively uniform, with few landmarks offering distinct differences, further contributing to this visual effect. Additionally, photographic evidence and mission logs consistently match up, verifying the authenticity of these images. Thus, while the identical backgrounds in lunar photos might seem suspicious at first, they actually reinforce the extraordinary and consistent conditions on the moon, debunking claims of a staged moon landing set. One of the most pervasive claims by conspiracy theorists is that the astronauts could not have survived passing through the Van Allen radiation belts, arguing that the high levels of radiation would have been fatal. However, a detailed examination of the mission's planning and execution debunks this theory. The Apollo spacecraft was meticulously designed to travel through the thinner portions of the radiation belts, minimizing exposure. Additionally, the speed at which they traveled ensured that the astronauts spent only a limited time within the hazardous zones. The spacecraft itself provided adequate shielding, and the total radiation dose received by the astronauts was closely monitored and kept within safe limits. These calculated measures and scientific precautions demonstrate that the journey through the Van Allen belts was not only survivable, but was executed with the utmost precision, ensuring the safety of the crew. Hence, the notion that the radiation belts were an insurmountable obstacle is thoroughly debunked by the mission's strategic planning and successful execution. Among the many claims made by moon landing skeptics, the so-called sea rock stands out for its apparent simplicity. Critics point to a specific lunar rock in one of the Apollo photos that seems to have the letter C etched onto it. They argue this is a prop marking, evidence that the moon landing was staged. However, this theory doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Upon detailed examination, experts suggest the C is likely a photographic anomaly, perhaps a stray hair or fiber that got caught during the photo development or scanning process. Such anomalies are not uncommon in both space and earthbound photography. Given the rigorous protocols for handling and developing NASA's photos, the sea rock claim is seen as a stretch by the scientific community. It's essential to remember that the high standards of verification and consistency employed by NASA and third-party analysts yield a reliable body of photographic evidence. Thus, the sea rock is debunked as a simple photographic artifact, rather than a sign of conspiracy. One of the pervasive claims made by moon landing conspiracy theorists is related to the clear footprints seen in the lunar dust. They argue that these well-defined prints suggest the presence of moisture, which shouldn't exist in the dry, airless environment of the moon. However, this theory is easily debunked by understanding the unique properties of lunar soil. The moon's surface is covered with a fine, powdery substance called regolith. Unlike Earth, where weathering smooths out particles, lunar regolith particles are jagged and interlock easily. This characteristic allows the dust to hold shapes incredibly well, even without moisture. Additionally, the vacuum conditions on the moon mean that the regolith remains undisturbed, except by direct contact, further preserving any impressions made. Thus, the clear footprints are a natural result of the interaction between the regolith's properties and the astronauts' movements. This scientific explanation solidifies the authenticity of the lunar photographs, demonstrating that what some see as suspicious is merely a fascinating quirk of lunar geology. We've journeyed through some of the most common conspiracy theories about the Apollo 11 moon landing. Now, it's time to summarize the scientific explanations that debunk these myths. We've addressed claims about shadow anomalies and shown how the moon's uneven terrain and reflected light can explain complex shadow patterns. The absence of stars in the photos? That's due to camera settings focused on capturing the bright lunar surface, leaving the much fainter stars invisible. The so-called flapping flag? Simply the result of astronaut movements and the flag's design, moving without wind atop the moon's soil. Identical backgrounds? Only an illusion caused by the moon's lack of atmospheric perspective. Surviving the Van Allen radiation belts was possible due to careful trajectory planning and shielding, keeping exposure within safe limits. The mysterious sea rock is likely a photographic anomaly or printing error. And those clear footprints? They're explained by the unique properties of lunar dust, rock, which retains its shape despite the lack of moisture. Through scientific scrutiny and rigorous analysis, each claim falls apart, reinforcing the authenticity of the Apollo 11 mission. Thank you for watching our in-depth exploration of the Apollo 11 moon landing conspiracy theories. We've covered various claims, from shadow anomalies to the visibility of stars, and provided scientific explanations to debunk each one. It's clear that the evidence overwhelmingly supports the authenticity of the moon landing. Remember, science and evidence are our best tools against misinformation. As we move forward, let's continue to trust incredible sources and rigorous scientific analysis. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more educational content. Stay curious and keep exploring.